some of the historical materials that I'm going to be talking about are dangerous and toxic, and I've tried to point out, don't use lead a lot. That said, if you go out and use a bunch of lead and you get sick, that's on you. I'm trying to tell you not to. Also, when I'm saying that materials are safe and safe to use, what I mean is that to the very best of my knowledge, they are not toxic. I don't know you, I don't know your body chemistry, I don't know what allergies you or sensitivities you have. I don't know your skin type. So if there's something that I suggest that you're allergic to, don't use it. If it's something that you haven't encountered before, I strongly suggest doing a small test patch or just wearing it for an hour or two to see if you have any problems. It's better to, stay safe with this kind of stuff. Okay. So now now that I've gotten all of the housekeeping and legal disclaimers out of the way. So basically, one thing that makes doing Roman cosmetics super interesting to me is that the Roman lady has like such a wide variety of cool and wonderful and exotic materials at her disposal. And this is also one of the few periods in Europe anyway, where you have what we as modern people would consider full face makeup. So you've got foundation, you've got color for the lips, you've got the cheeks, you've got the eyes, you've got everything going on. So the first step in all of this is going to be lightening the face. Now, there's two reasons why you want to do that. The first reason is that, it's partially a class thing, because this is showing that, you're not poor. You don't have to be working outside. You're not in the fields. But when you're talking about the Roman upper classes, being a little bit pale, and again, we're not talking like ghost white, it's just this is a lighter version of my natural skin tone kind of thing, is about showing that you are a good, proper, and virtuous Roman matron. You are staying inside, taking care of your house, and spinning wool and weaving and all that kind of stuff. You're not out going to the markets to buy things. You're not going to the games to watch the gladiators. You're not going here and there with all your friends. And as we all know, if you don't have your own matronly virtue, store-bought is fine. So, the main ways that the complexion could be lightened was, one of the major ones was using ceruse, which is basically lead oxide. Toxic, don't use it, lead, bad. Mixed with some type of a starch and an oil or a fat. And then applying that as a cream to the skin. Now, the really exciting thing is that about 10 years ago in England, they found a can, and this is a modern cosmetics tin. Honest to God, it's exactly what the Roman one looks like. And they used, instead of lead oxide, tin oxide. Now, we don't know if they were using the tin oxide because they knew it was non-toxic, or if they were using the tin oxide because they were in Britain and they had a bunch of tin. But anyway, this is a recipe that is both period and actually safe to use. That's a batch of it that I've made right there. And that is actually what I have on my face right now. And you can see it doesn't give me a really pasty white. it's sort of a soft, almost sheer application. Now, your other choices, if you don't want to use the cream, you've got talc. There's also orris root, which has a lovely kind of violet scent. Cosmetic clay, which was used both in like cleansing as a skin cleanser and also later on as a powder. The other option for a powder is cosmetic chalk. Talc is sometimes sold as chalk. It's magnesium carbonate. This is actually calcium carbonate. And you could apply it as a powder, but it could also be mixed with vinegar. Now, vinegar may or may not be a good idea for you personally. I have kind of oily skin, so this works super well for me. If you have dry skin, you probably want to go with one of your other options. Anyway, you're going to have fun with chemistry. You're going to take a little bit of vinegar. And as you mix it, you can see it's going to fizz and do the baking soda volcano thing, which is tremendously exciting. And it's interesting because as part of the chemical reaction, the vinegar stops smelling like vinegar. It really doesn't smell like anything at all. So then once it's kind of quit fizzing, and I'm going to put this on the back of my hand just so you can sort of see what's going on. You're going to dab it onto the back of your hand and then just kind of let it dry a little bit and then blend it softly. And as you can see, you get this really nice sort of, I'm going to hold my hand closer. You get this really nice sort of semi-sheer application from the chalk mixed with vinegar. Just a second, I'm going to use my amazingly non-period cleansing wipes to take that part off of my skin. Okay, so that gets us through lightening the skin. So now that I've taken all the color out of my face, I'm going to start adding some color onto there. Now, to outline the eye, the main thing that the Romans used was coal. This particular sample is made out of lampblack. And to apply this, you're just going to take a stick. This one is a nail tool that I bought at a beauty supply store. And then you just dip it in and apply around the eye. And that's going to make a really nice ring that is extremely hydrophobic, if we want to use the cool scientific word, which means it won't cry, sweat, run, or if you get your face wet, it's going to stick around for a good long time. In period, and unfortunate to say, still in modern times, a lot of the coal was made with either black lead oxide or with antimony, both of which are toxic. And if you go to buy coal today commercially, a lot of it is still going to be made with either antimony or lead oxide. So your best bet there is to either make your own or to use a modern black eyeliner. You want to be really careful about the commercial coals. So now we're going to move on to adding color to the eyelids. In a lot of secondary sources, you will see references to using malachite and lapis lazuli, both of which are really toxic, especially if you're talking about like breathing in the dust. And by the Roman period, there's not a lot of textual sources that are super clear that you are using lapis and malachite as cosmetics, as opposed to using them in a medicinal sense, because like the copper sulfide in the malachite is actually antibacterial. So the two things that we have really good documentation on are the ashes of burned rose petals, and where's my saffron? And saffron. And the way that you would use the rose petals, you're just going to put a little tiny bit onto your brush and then brush it on. That's also what I have on my eyelids right now. And with the saffron, and you can see it gives you a really nice kind of blackish gray color. Now with the saffron, what you're going to do is you're going to take your mortar and pestle, and you are going to take maybe like 3 or 4 threads of saffron. And you're going to put them down in your mortar. And then you're going to grind it, grind it, grind it. That's the only saving grace with this in terms of cost, is that you use such a minute amount, because saffron was and is extremely expensive. This is like about 1/10 of a gram of saffron by weight. It cost me about $10. Now that I've ground my saffron and I've got this lovely yellow color in the bottom of my mortar, I'm then going to take my cosmetic brush and I'm going to just dip it in a little bit of rose water. Rose water was very popular, both in perfumery and as a cosmetic, because all of the roses were imported at this point, so it's a very luxurious product, and of course it's associated with Venus and has all of those wonderful associations as well. And then I'm applying this to my wrist so you can sort of see. It gives you this really gorgeous kind of almost gilded gold color. And, this is sort of sort of the ultimate of conspicuous consumption. This is a very expensive, very luxurious preparation, and that's the point. Now, if you're interested in a slightly more budget option, there is yellow ochre. I got mine from a lady named Sally Pointer. You can get it from Order Natural Pigments for Artists. And as you can see, it doesn't have quite that same, this is the saffron and this is the ochre. You can see it doesn't have quite that same rich glow to it. But for the Roman lady who's looking for the budget option, saffron is definitely in there. Now, and another thing that you can do, I personally did not today because it's really fussy, and you still end up with a lot of transfer from the lashes to the lower to just underneath the eye. Is you can take coal or just like even just ground up charcoal, and take a brush and paint that onto your eyelids to make not your eyelids, sorry, your eyelashes, to make things look thicker and fuller. Now, this is some red ochre that I bought from an art supply company. This is another red ochre. This one I purchased from Sally Pointer. This is a little pinker, so you can definitely find the ochre that you like. To apply it to the cheeks, you can just kind of use it as a powder and blend. I don't particularly care for the color that it comes out on my skin tone. So I mostly use this as lip color. It's a little bit drying to the lips, but it's absolutely great in terms of lasting. Like, it stays and stays and stays forever. So what you're going to do is take your brush, and I don't have a fancy brush, and you just dip it. Here, let me move my, you can see what I'm doing. And you're going to just barely dip it into the rose water. You can pick up a little bit of that red ochre, and then you're going to paint that on your lips. I'm going to put some on my wrist. You can see what's going on. This really gorgeous kind of brick red color. And that will stay and stay and stay through eating, through happy fun time, through all sorts of things. The red ochre is really good, and for that. The other options that you have is alkanet soaked in oil to extract the color, either as a liquid where it will go on nicely as sort of a gloss. You can also add a little bit of beeswax to make a solid. And we have a lot of references, mostly to perfumery, where you have solid perfumes that are being made with beeswax, and a lot of those do contain alkanet as a color. And then you can see kind of what that looks like when it goes on the wrist also. And the alkanet extracted in oil and mixed with beeswax is what I'm wearing right now today. And you can see it gives you like kind of a nice, definite sort of pinky red color. Now, the other option, and I just barely started playing with this, so I don't know how it behaves as a lip color yet, is you can actually, you would have been the Pure Parisima, which is the extract of the sea snail that was also used to make Murex dye, that could be then mixed with chalk to make a paint or a pigment, and could also be used as a face color. This is 1 gram of, well, slightly less than 1 gram of the Pure Parisima that is being made by this wonderfully dedicated and eccentric man in Tunisia named Mohamed Nouria. You can buy dye from him, you can buy samples from him. He's really wonderful. The Pure Parisima cost me $80 for a gram, which means that it would literally be cheaper to use gold dust. Gold is currently $55 a gram. But it is, I decided to really pull out all the stops for you, and that's what I have on my cheeks today. And you can see it gives you this really gorgeous, really natural looking kind of just a very light red, you know, kind of a light kind of purpley red color, right, very slightly purple though, right on the face, and it looks great, and it seems to be weighing really well. and wearing really well rather. And if you kind of want what was historically and even today kind of the ultimate in luxury cosmetics, I mean, Sephora has nothing on this. So that's not the budget option, but one of the cheap options. A less expensive, much more budget conscious option is to use the wine lees. So after you finish drinking your cup of wine and you've got just a little bit left in the cup, you leave that overnight. This is a Syrah, which is a very dark red that, according to the sources on wine that I could find, was probably similar to a popular Roman wine. And anyway, you take that and you rub it in to your lips or your cheeks, and it's a little bit sticky, but it gives you, and obviously this color is going to depend a little bit on exactly what kind of wine you have. You can see it gives you this absolutely gorgeous kind of purpley red color on your lips, and that is going to stay and stay and stay. It lasts very well indeed. I kind of call it the Roman bad girl look because wine drinking, especially if we're talking about drinking unmixed wine, was considered like, bad behavior and a little bit risque, especially if women were doing it. So having wine lees around and using it as a cosmetic the next day, I mean, this is the Roman equivalent of brushing your teeth with a bottle of Jack. If you don't mind me quoting Kesha. Just a couple of quick things on application. For the Roman period, and I will show you my ladies now. For the Roman period, you can see where you have color added to the cheeks. It's typically sort of up on the apples of the cheeks. And the lips, you're going for a fairly even, fairly natural looking application of color. So, just enough to kind of enhance what's there, but you aren't really, but you don't want a like extremely artificial painted look. So that is all I have for the class. If you have any questions, now is a good time to ask them.
Yeah. Did they do anything with their eyelashes?
Ovid talks about women using coal or soot to paint the lashes, to darken them. I've tried, I didn't do that today. I've tried doing that, and I've found that you end up with a lot of transfer underneath the eye. And and Ovid like specifically talks about how ridiculous it is, because you have to do it if you're going to have it, if you're going to thicken your eyelashes like that, you're going to have to do it at least once a day and probably more. It's one of those things where not everybody wore every bit of makeup, and that's one that I personally tend not to feel like messing around with. But yeah, using either the lamp black coal or possibly even powdered very, very finely powdered charcoal would definitely be an option.
Have you tried using your cork? Your eyelashes?
I've tried using the cork. the issue that I've had is not being able to get enough cork onto the brush that it will transfer readily to my eyelashes. I don't know if that's a problem with my cork or with me or with the brush I'm trying to use. So if anybody wants to try it out and has better luck, I would love to learn how you do that.
Well, Italian women have pretty long black eyelashes to start
Yeah,
with.
well, yeah, and that's the other thing is that part of it is you're talking about ethnic groups that because a lot of the pictures that I showed to you are actually from the mummy portraits from Fayoum was in Roman Egypt. So you have ladies who are very much Romanized in terms of culture, but ethnically are from various parts of Africa. And again, you're talking about ethnic groups where people tend to have relatively, as a group, tend to have relatively thicker, darker lashes. Absolutely. And unlike the makeup on the rest of the face, adding something to lighten your skin isn't going to affect your lashes the same way it would affect your brows or your cheeks.
Did they wear powder on their faces like they did in the Renaissance?
Yes. The options for powder that you're looking at are, this is talc, which is magnesium carbonate. This is orris root. This is cosmetic clay. All of those could be used as powders. And this is chalk.
Would that be applied with a big fat brush or a powder puff?
We don't know.
Uh,
There isn't a lot of, to the best of my knowledge, there haven't been any archaeological finds that show that have a powder puff equivalent, and there's not a lot of art that's showing a powder puff. You have a lot of brushes, but
mm-hmm.
My guess would be that you're probably talking about something more like what we would call a blush brush. So something that's fairly full, but not quite a powder proof. In my own experience, I found that a blush brush works really well. So does the cosmetic sponge. And then the chalk, I don't know if you missed this, if you saw that part of the demonstration or not, but the chalk,
Mm-hmm.
the calcium carbonate, you can actually mix with vinegar.
Yeah, I saw you use a natural sponge.
Yeah, with the natural sponge, and that gets you, a little bit more like it goes on like a liquid foundation, but then it dries like a powder.
Mm.
But the advantage of the calcium carbonate, and I'm specifying that because if you try doing this with talc, which you can also find sold under the name of chalk, if you do it with talc, it smells horrible and you don't want that anywhere near your face. The calcium carbonate neutralizes the odor of the vinegar as part of the chemical reaction.
Uh-huh.
And the interesting thing about it is it goes on in this really nice sort of soft, almost powdery application, but it doesn't want to settle into the fine lines in the same way that just putting a straight powder on will do, which is why I personally tend to favor either the tin oxide
Mm-hmm.
that I made, or the chalk and vinegar preparation as a base.
Mm-hmm. Did they have any kind of a cleansing regimen?
Oh yes, yes. I didn't. This class is just on cosmetics because if I started to get into Roman bathing regimens, that would be like a whole nother class. You had all kinds of different recipes for various special scrubs and face packs and night creams and moisturizing creams. And you had also various depilatories, which are not something that I've been particularly anxious to play with. And shaving and plucking were also options for hair removal. And then, of course, the main method that was used for bathing was, instead of using soap, you would rub your entire body down with cheap olive oil. And then you would have a special scraper called the strigil that you would use to scrape the olive oil and dead skin and everything else off of your arm or your anywhere, or your back, or anywhere else on your body. And that would take all of the grease, that would take all the body oils and dirt and everything else off of your body. And it would just, if you, I don't know if anyone's ever tried it, but if you do, your skin has never been so moisturized. It's really, really great. When I've done it, I admit I tend to, go in for modern sensibilities and take a bath and shower with a little bit of soap, just because I don't like the really oily feeling on my skin. But it just really softens and moisturizes the skin and really does some great stuff. If you're using the olive oil and then scraping it off. So the problem with bathing is it's a little bit harder to demonstrate in a class. Were there any other questions?
What material was the scraper made of?
The ones that they've found archaeologically seem to have mostly been made out of bronze, which makes sense considering that copper ones also show up. Bronze, just based on the archaeology, seems to be the most prevalent, which makes a lot of sense when you consider that you're talking about something that you're going to be having in a bath, in a, wet, damp environment. So obviously you don't want something that's going to rust, and you also want something that's going to, hold up to a lot of use.
So you mentioned the baths. Are these something that would be privately owned, or would the bathhouses have ones to use?
It depends on how rich you are. If you're really, really rich, and you're in a city or a town, you might have your own private bath. Or on the big estates where you were pretty much on your own resources, there might be a bathhouse built that would be communal. Otherwise, the bathhouses are pretty much these big public baths. Actually, if you go, there's actually right now several museums that have tours online of surviving Roman baths, and they were huge. So hundreds of people could probably be there at one time, and there they would have the materials on hand, and you would just kind of pay for whatever spa treatment that you could afford. So I just want to give a quick shout out to a couple of books that have been very useful to me. This is Cosmetics and Perfumes in the Roman World by Susan Stewart. This has a lot of the literary evidence and so on for cosmetic use. Another really great book for a variety of periods is The Artifice of Beauty by Sally Pointer. Unfortunately, it's out of print. You can still find used copies online for I want to say right around $30. And if you only own one book on historical cosmetics, this is the one you want. It's very well researched, and they don't give you like 2 lines about, or half a chapter about stuff in the SCA period before jumping to World War II, which a lot of makeup history books tend to do. If nobody has any further questions, I want to thank you again for coming to my class, and I hope you enjoyed it.